Please be seated. So, just to be clear about kind of what's going to happen after the service is over, there'll be opportunity to, am I on? Yeah. Go out for lunch. Anita and her team have prepared a wonderful lunch, and it's going to be in 3 locations. One, as I mentioned, a lot of the children might want to go over to the preschool where a lot of the games. Right back here in Hamilton Auditorium is a lunch area, and across the street in the portico of the LEC, the Jurger Hall, is a lunch area. So you can feel free to go there, and the old cars are out there under the trees. So I hope that's helpful. Several people have asked me, are you nervous? Are you excited? I said, yeah, I'm excited. I'm nervous. It reminded me of that groom, that young man up in the Midwest who's getting married, and on the day of his wedding, he was kind of overwhelmed. He saw his bride come down, and he was kind of overwhelmed by that, and then the crowd was bigger than he thought, and so he was really nervous. And so when it came to that part where the preacher said, well, you have this woman to be your lawful wedded wife, to have and to hold, to love and to cherish till death do you part, he was so nervous, he said, would you repeat that question? Some of you have asked about this suit. I had the privilege of going through a lot of the archives. You're such a great crowd. You laugh and it's not even yet funny. I don't even know what you're talking about. I'd rather like this suit, if you don't mind. At any rate, going through the archives, and I saw some pictures of, lots of things, and you see them out here. In fact, that over there, Les has, at the first table, he's made some CDs of organ music that he's created, and they're a donation going to help the organ fund, so remember that. But I saw a number of pictures of J. Wallace Hamilton with a white suit on, and I had this suit, it's off-white, and then I thought, gee, do I dare wear something like the Great One wore? And I thought, let's try it. Although I feel like the story of the young guy, I'm not young anymore, but the young guy who went to hear an amazing preacher like J. Wallace. He was preaching to a bunch of other preachers like J. Wallace Hamilton did. And right in the middle of his sermon, he stopped and said, I got to tell you something. I spent last night for 2 hours in the arms of another woman who wasn't my wife. The gasp by the young preachers. He said, yeah, I flew 5 hours to be with my 95-year-old mother. And so the young preacher was taken with that. You know how young preachers, we pick up what older preachers do, and we don't always get it right when we redo it. So he was eager to get to his church the next Sunday, so he got to the church the next Sunday, and he's preaching along, and he says, I've got something to tell you. I spent last night for 2 hours in the arms of another woman who wasn't my wife. But then he kind of froze, and he said, and I can't remember who she was. Now, what I'm going to do today, one of the things I found, I thought, gee, if I could find some of J. Wallace Hamilton's old sermons, which there's a bunch of them up there, they were, and now I've got them all, but I've got several of them. I thought, I'm going to use some of his words to make the point. And so the first part of this sermon is going to be from 2 sermons of his, one in 1958, Change Your Mind and Accept the New, and the other's from 1961. It's the story of Joshua following Moses, and it's entitled Keep Moving, Keep Moving. And then the last half of the sermon, I'm going to give you what I think are 4 big dreams for our congregation, okay? So the first bit is about quotes from J. Wallace Hamilton, and I think we'll be all right on time. This is Change Your Mind and Accept the New. Some of you remember this, I suspect. It says, there's nothing in the world more certain than change, and perhaps there's nothing Christian people are more reluctant to accept and unprepared to deal with than change. I thought you could accept that better from him than from me. People can be roughly classified into three major groupings. On the one hand, we have the radicals who are out to destroy the old and leap with one swift jump into something they think is new. Revolution is their magic word. This is 1958. Smash it up, tear it down, overthrow the existing order. How many movements in how many lands are taking the violent way of revolution, destroying the old that something new might come? Obviously, Christian people can't go along with that. Jesus didn't. There were revolutionary movements all the time around Jesus' time, and Jesus resisted that, said no to that. On the other hand, we have the stand-patters. Dyed in the wool folks. He said conservatives, but I'm afraid some of you might be upset at that. But at any rate, dyed in the wool conservatives who are out to preserve the old world and everything in it. They like the way things are and are determined at all costs to keep it. So they set themselves against the new. Hold on as long as they can, put their money and energies into organizations to patch up, shore up the old structures. Obviously, the Christian people with the mind of Christ can't go along with that. Jesus didn't. He was continually clashing with the Pharisees, who were the stand-patters of that age, who wanted to keep things they were back in the time of Moses. Can't do that. Whatever else Jesus was, you can't put him down among the stand-patters. He wasn't. They killed him because he wasn't. He wanted to change things. They said no. The hope lies in the third way. The Christian way lies in another attitude altogether. This guy's so brilliant, isn't he? Not middle ground between these two, but above both, in the solid people of all lands who have learned the meaning of change, the divine laws of growth, progress, and maturity, and therefore out not to destroy the old, certainly not to preserve it, but to transform it by spiritual fulfillment. Jesus said, "Think not that I've come to destroy, but to fulfill." You've heard it said of old, but I say to you, get up, move on. So he says, I want to put down three plain facts which in my judgment are indisputable. The first is this: we dislike change. One of the hardest things we mortals have to do is repent, turn around, change our minds. Neophobia, some people call it, fear of change, fear of the new. Almost every new invention has encountered neophobia. The president of one of the oldest insurance companies in America in 1904, speaking about automobile coverage, said, "We will never insure gasoline cans on wheels, those noisy, stinking things." Copernicus was compelled to stay indoors, out of sight, for 36 years, lest people think he was crazy because he said the world was round. When Harvey announced his discovery of the circulation of blood, his findings were rejected by every doctor of reputation. We could go on. And in the church, it's no different. He quotes this little ditty: "Our fathers have been churchmen 19 years or so, and to every new proposal, they've always answered no." Second thing he says, change is going to come whether we like it or not. It's just what it is. It's inevitable. This is interesting. 1958, he said, the world we grew up in isn't here anymore. Old solutions won't work anymore. Old customs that once had meaning are obsolete. The world is changing with it. We must change. Some of you have already ordered something on Amazon just by your phone this morning, haven't you? Right here. Just kidding. Now you will. All right. Let's put down a final clear word. Christian people should take the lead in change. Blaze the trails, mark out the path, be the forerunners of the new age that's trying to come. Too bad Christian people haven't always understood that. How in the world did the notion grow up that Christianity is a stand-pat religion, committed to the past and opposed to change, when that's what it's here to do? To change things, to change the world, to make all things in it, including human beings themselves, brand new. Change. Let the Spirit of God lead you and me and Pasadena Community Church into a new and glorious future. Let us dream big, new dreams. And then in 1961, January 1st, he had this sermon From Joshua chapter 1, verses 1 through 7. Keep moving. Moses was dead. That was the dark, unbelievable calamity they had to face and come to terms with. Moses was dead. Moses had been their George Washington, their J. Wallace Hamilton. They'd never known any other leader quite like him. His grave loomed big enough to fill the whole earth. And then he goes on. He said, I've chosen this story of Joshua following Moses, not because it really neatly answers our question, how could it? But because it reminds us of a thought we don't think about enough, and that is this: the God who was there for Moses will be there for Joshua. He promised, I'll be with you every day wherever you go. And the God who's with J. Wallace Hamilton and the amazing things they did back in that day is the same God who is with you and me today and wants to do amazing and exciting things. Would you say amen? All right. It's not a time of calamity, it's a time of challenging, real opportunity. Hamilton says in his own wonderful way, our bodies change. If you don't believe it, take a look at an old photograph you had 10 years ago. There were people in Joshua's day who didn't like the idea of change. They were part of a movement in which God was leading them out, a movement of which all generations since have remembered as one of the most amazing things in human history. But they stood around grumbling about the hardships, sighing for the good old days that would never come again. I suppose you could say, he says, it's human nature to do that. Moses, my servant, is dead. Very well. That's not the occasion for complaint, it's the signal for advance. Get up, go on, go over Jordan. Get up, go on, move forward. He again says something in his amazing way. He says that in the very construction of our bodies, think about this, have you thought of it? When God fashioned human beings, he made us to go in only one direction, no provision for retreat. Where are your eyes? In the front of your head or your back of your head? Where are your hands? In the front or the back? Look down at your feet. Which way are they pointing? Forward. One direction. J. Wallace says, I tell you, the church is notoriously slow to move. If you don't believe that, try changing something in the church. Actually, I haven't found that here. You all are pretty good about that. Or try, he says, building a church that doesn't look like every other church. I read an article. This article, well, it's here in my stack, but after this church was built, he said a number of people, including Walter Winchell, made fun of this building, but it was with purpose. Theodore Roosevelt once paid tribute to the old Methodist circuit riders, those preachers on horseback in early America. He summed up their contribution to the winning of the West. He said, they helped to keep alive the divine fire in the heart of the pioneer. They helped to keep alive the divine fire in the pioneer. This is the mission of the church in this time of change. Strike out across the Jordan, pitch its tents alongside a changing, moving civilization. Keep alive the divine fire and faith in the hearts of the pioneers. Be the way showers of the ongoing purpose of God. This is who God has called us to be, to dream big dreams, to roll up our sleeves and make it happen, for God will be with us, helping us dream. So here are 4 big dreams I want to share with you this morning. 4 ways that you keep moving, 4 ways we can lead in change and blazing trails. In reality, I'm just building on what I've observed what you're all doing already, but maybe add a little bit. The dream of expanding this amazing fellowship of love here. I've talked to a lot of you, and a lot of you said, I just love coming to this congregation. I feel loved. I feel accepted. I feel something when I come in here, and I think what you want is to expand that to hundreds, thousands. If you Google loneliness in America, you'll find some amazing things. We live in an epidemic of loneliness. And this church has the amazing answer, doesn't it? You come here and you feel the love of God. Everyone, all are accepted. And the Pew Research just came out 2 weeks ago that said, how's it go? Being involved in, connected in a religious community equals higher levels of happiness. Can any of you say you're happier because you joined Pasadena Community Church? Belong here? Yeah. Don't you want that for everybody you know? We put this on Facebook that we're going to do this today, and one of the most outstanding preachers in Florida, fairly young man, everybody's young now to me, but a fairly young man named Magray de Vega, who grew up in this church. A couple of you said that when you heard him preach his sermon 30 years ago as a high schooler, you said, this guy's going to be amazing. And he is. He's over at Hyde Park United Methodist Church. I wish he could come here in July, but he's ensconced over there, so don't get your hopes up on that one. Here's what he wrote me back. He said, in the 1970s, my parents were told by people in the area they needed to visit Pasadena. But they were new to this country, spoke broken English, and shy about going into a sanctuary full of strangers. So for many years, my parents and I and my 2 younger brothers would pile into our station wagon and attend worship outside. It wasn't until years later that we got the courage to go inside that sanctuary, and the friendliness of the congregation took us over from there. But were it not for the innovation of Pasadena's drive-in worship, the hospitality of those outdoor ushers, and the great music by Fred Harrison's choirs and powerful sermons by Tom Kelsey, Ed Norman, and Jack Stroman, I doubt I would be United Methodist today. Blessings to you all for a joyous celebration. I will always remember the quote that used to adorn the old outdoor pavilion on the campus. And somebody would, if you could tell me where that outdoor pavilion was, I'd like to know. Not right now, but later. Here's what it said: with our minds on the past, our hands in the present, and an eye toward the future. Our minds on the past, our hands in the present, and an eye toward the future. So I shared with him. He said, I remember that quote because a drive-in worshiper for many years as a child. My brothers and I used to hang out there every time. Actually, he said he preached his first sermon here 30 years ago and his last sermon here 25 years ago. And we're going to have lunch this week to see if he'll come back and preach another sermon. Wouldn't that be wonderful? You can welcome back Magray de Vega. So dream big dreams. The second one is that all our buildings will be restored to excellent shape. Oh, okay. In the service of God, not just for the restoration of the buildings, but for the restoration of lives that will be there. Do you hear me? You love your buildings. Your heritage is amazing. Here's the deal about older buildings. If you take care of them, they will take care of you. If you let them go, they'll eat you alive. And every roof on this building behind us, Hamilton, has leaked for 2 or 3 or many years. You know what leaking water does? So the trustees are on the move. They got a plan. They're doing great stuff. They've they reshingled the main auditorium roof over the powerhouse, the youth area. They just did the Goodwin Chapel roof, and they're going to tomorrow start on the Gathering Place roof, and they're hoping to do the whole shebang sometime soon as they get the money. And you know the powerhouse is being refurbished, and we need painters now because the ceilings have been fixed and all of that. The roof is just looking really good. Some of the bathrooms need attention. Some of the children's bathrooms, we're decluttering. It's going to be a great day, February 26th. Trustees are outstanding. They have a vision, a plan, energy, and wisdom. They have some money. They just don't have enough money to do all they need to do. Take care of all the needs of the aging AC units. This pipe organ needs at least $12,000, $14,000 of work. Already did $11,000, needs some more. Now, here's my dream. My sense is that all of us, including perhaps especially our northern friends, appreciate greatly this church and the fellowship and what you find here. And you're the kind of people, I imagine, that if you know there's a need, you welcome the opportunity to help address that need, just as you did with the old truck, just as you did with the youth building. So I just want you to know our needs. And next week we're going to put out a little brochure that tells you the needs and how much, and no pressure. No pressure. I'm not a mean ogre. I mean, come on. But if you want to, that would be helpful, because this organ ought to be, the leather needs work. It's amazing. How many churches have an instrument like that? So that's a dream, that all these buildings will be restored. I think you'll get there. I think you really will. The third thing is, you dream you'll go deeper and stronger in your relationship with Jesus. I think you want solid meat. You want to be challenged. You want to be encouraged. You want a pathway when you come here and you say, I don't know anything. I want a started point and I can grow. Somebody said to me the other day, I've been around churches a lot. I just don't know the basics. And so during Lent, I'm going to offer a class on Wednesday night on the Gospel of John, and lots more that needs to be done, because you like to be involved and you cherish your ways of being in outreach. So many 60, 70 outreach missions and global missions, and what a marvelous thing. You gave over $9,000 last Sunday to help the global missions, the missionaries around the world. And then fourthly, the big dream is you'll have an excellent next senior pastor. Is that a dream for all of you, that your next senior pastor will be really, really... Here's what your staff parish, and they're really good, and they're working hard with the cabinet, the bishop, and the DS, is they want a leader who can preach and a preacher who can lead. A leader who can preach, convey the truths, and a preacher who can lead, who can roll up their sleeves, that can help administer this $3 million operation you've got here, and these many properties and this marvelous staff, who will come alongside of you. I was reading this article, 1967, the St. Pete Times. It's an interview with Dr. Hamilton and inside the sanctuary here. And they said to him, how in the world is it that you could be here? I forget how many years he was here by then, 37 years, 40 years, something like that. And he said, well, other people looked at this church and figured it was too hard to work to come here, so they left me here. And he said, seriously, he said, I'm not being glib. It's 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, along with counseling. Who knew he counseled as well? I didn't know that. I thought he just hung out and he studied and preached on Sunday. Yeah, hours of counseling. Going to staff parish meeting, going to church council meeting, going to trustees meeting, finance meeting. I even read in one of the expansions he got a paintbrush and helped paint along the way. That's what you need. You want somebody who will lead and preach and come alongside you and pray. And there's somebody out there, I know they are. And it's going to be really important. And you'll find out March, I think, or April sometime. So those are the four big dreams. Now let me make it personal. What are your dreams? What are your dreams? Almost done. Jan and I, we have some dreams. I have a feeling your dream for yourself might be healing for somebody you love. Your dream might be your children will grow up knowing Jesus and serving him. Your dream might be that they might be kind. One of you told me you'd like to be involved in homeless ministry, and it'd be a great time for my little child to know about kindness. I have a dream to visit all the national parks. I've got myself at Christmas time a big map of all the national parks with you put pins in them. We've only been to 22 so far, but hopefully we're going to go see some more of them. If you all would leave us alone, we'd go see them. So you've got, you could take the lead in dreams. I feel that in your being. You want things to happen. You're going to dream big dreams. You're going to roll up your sleeves. You do. I mean, these Monday morning guys, they just work like crazy, and everybody's ready to do stuff. I'm finished now. Last April, Jan and I and another couple visited Spain, and we traveled around. We went to I can't forget what town it was. At the university there had all of Cervantes' poetry and literature, and it was a great thing of Cervantes, who wrote Don Quixote and the Impossible Dream. And the thing about Don Quixote was people thought he was crazy at first, but they began to believe in the dreams he had. And then there's Jesus, who who said to his followers, come follow me in my dream. God has a dream for humanity, and I'm a part of it, and I want you to follow and make the kingdom of God, that God's dream for the world, into a reality. And J. Wallace Hamilton had a dream that there be a place where people could pull their cars up, or they could be inside, and thousands of people could hear the word of God. I have a feeling that J. Wallace Hamilton and Florence and Ethel Sims and Glenn McCormick and others are up there cheering on you this morning and in the future. And if I've gotten to know him at all, I never met him, but I bet he's saying, get up, get moving, change the world, dream the impossible dream.